All right, everyone. Let's begin. I was looking for my headset. Someone was playing songs with this thing. It's a nonsense phone speaker. So let me turn out the noise first. Mhm. So good evening, amazing people. Welcome to the second session of Tony Iyke's January advanced class for 2026, where you will get spiritual powers to trade the financial market. So let's begin. So in the first class, I basically introduced the whole strategy to you guys, the concepts that we traded with, the market structure, the liquidity, point of interest. Then I said directional bias on the last class, which would be to know the overall bias of the market and the rest. For this particular class, I hope you guys went through the recording of the last class because after this session, we'll have a question session where you will ask questions related to what I've taught, where you ask questions related to what I have taught, not what I'm still yet to teach. The things I've taught where there are confusions in the topics I don't understand. So now in the first class, I introduced market structure. I talked about the concepts that we trade market structure with. I said we trade the structure part of the strategy with what we call the concept of reversals and the concept of continuations. These are the two concepts that we trade market structure with. Now, after that, I said that the reversal concept is traded with what we call a market structure shift, and the continuation concept is traded with what you call a multiple breakout structure. Now, the market structure shift is basically an indication that the current trend that market is on is ending and a new trend is about to begin in the opposite direction of the market. Meanwhile, the continuation entry, basically being the multiple breakout structure, is basically a scenario where price continues breaking key levels while maintaining the current trend. And it's basically used to trade continuations of whichever trend the market is currently on. So after that, I talked about the inducement, basically saying that the inducement is the first valid pullback that market gives you after a market structure shift or after a multiple breakout structure. And I said that a candle wick can as well also be an inducement, as long as after the retracement was made, price proceeds to take out the body closure of your MSS candle or the body closure of your multiple breakout structure candle. After that, we talked about the point of interest, and then I introduced one of the POIs that we make use of, which is your order block. I said the order block is a zone in the market where there are a lot of institutional orders, the zones where the banks, the institutions place their limit orders in the market, basically having specific shapes. For example, we have two types of order blocks, the bullish order block and then the bearish order block. The bullish order block being the kind of order block we look out for when we're looking for buy scenarios. So if you're looking for buys, the it has a specific shape, kind of if it's a bullish order block, you'll see a bearish candle, then a bullish candle that engulfs it. If it's a bearish order block, you'll see a bearish candle, then a bullish candle that engulfs it. After that, I now also said that aside the order block, there's also another POI that I make use of, which we call I generalize it and call it breaker blocks, but it's not just breaker blocks because there's what you call a mitigation block as well. So rejection blocks, all those things. So, but I categorize all of them and just into just one PO and I call them failed OBs. Basically, the zones that price break from while your MSS or your multiple breakout structure is being created. For example, if you check out some of these zones, last week we talked about, for example, in this particular trade, the MSS inducement price bought from the other block here. Do you understand? Then, in one of the examples I gave again, price bought from the other block as well, which is down here. Now, simply because this happened doesn't mean that on the long run, every trade you take is going to go buy from the OB. This trade right here that will have the OB marked out, price never came down to this OB. Instead, price started buying from here. This trade, the OB that we had marked out here, price never came to this OB. Instead, price started buying from here. There is a reason why. simply because the order block is not the only point of interest that we use. In this scenario here, we have the order block marked out and price bought from this order block here. We have this order block marked out, price bought from this order block here. Now, this other scenario here, when price started buying from this zone, this is the order block level. Price never came down to this level or this level as well. So that goes to say that in picking POIs, the order block is not the only point of interest that we make use of. I would say the breaker block, I'll just call it the breaker block in general, is also acts as another POI that price can also buy from. This scenario, we had a buy coming from this level. Do you get? So this scenario here, we had a price coming from this level. This scenario here, we had a price coming from this level. So all this is also another kind of POI that price can actually buy or sell from. So these two POIs, even the recent trade that I can have a recent with BTC trade, recent buy on BTC, price price bought from here. Price bought from here. This is the other block. Now there's a reason why. So like I said, these two PIs they work hand in hand. Price can either buy from this zone or price can buy from this zone. Price can either buy from this zone or price can buy from this zone. So all these are POIs that price actually respects. Now, hope you guys are following me up. And power. Let's start unleashing the knowledge. So now, how do you differentiate between an order block and a breaker block? And how do you also figure out which POI between the two to make use of? So first of all, we already know what an order block is. We already understand the pattern of an order block. We understand the shape of an order block. That is already done. Now, it's now time to talk about the breaker block and then talk about the rules of picking a proper point of interest. Now, I'm trying to go back to the example. Yeah. So now, the breaker block is what you call a failed OB or a failed zone. Why do I call it a failed OB? Because the breaker block is mostly at zones where a reversal is actually meant to come in. For example, this is what I mean. The market does something like this and breaks this zone. I call this a failed OB because in hindsight, this zone, when price comes here, it was supposed to just maybe start pushing back down. That's why I call it a failed OB. But it's not just a failed OB. The breaker block are those zones that price break or the zones that price take out while creating your multiple breaker structure or your market structure shift. For example, if this is to be a market structure shift, let's see, we have lower highs and we have lower lows. We have lower high, we have lower low. We have lower high and we have lower low. We have lower high and we have lower low. While this is happening, there is no need to start looking for POIs yet because you've not gotten either part of the structure, part of your strategy. You only start looking for POIs the moment you've gotten the structure part of your strategy. So the moment you've gotten either a market structure shift or either a multiple breakout structure, that is when it's time to start looking for your possible points of interest. So let's assume that we're expecting a reversal to come in and price hits that zone we're expecting that reversal. I said these zones are the zones of the daily time frame that I will talk about these zones later on. Price hits that zone, then gives you a market structure shift. The moment it gives that market structure shift, you have to pay attention to two things. Well, one thing first, you have to ensure that the candle that triggers that MSS closes. If it's a reversal concept, the candle that triggered that market structure shift, you have to make sure that the candle closes first. above the zones that was taken out. So if you're looking for an MSS and price wants to take out the high, ensure that that high price takes it out and closes above the high with a body candle. Let's assume the candle for the MSS closed here. I want to give you another scenario again. This is the zone you're expecting the reversal to come in. Price is giving you a series of lower high, then lower low, 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 lower high, triggers the zone, takes out this high and closes above this zone. Now, what is the difference between these two scenarios that I just mapped out here? This is the difference between these two scenarios. The first scenario took out this high and this high, closing above two zones. This second scenario took out just this high. If it's based on reversal concept, these two scenarios are still correct for a proper market structure shift. These two zones are correct for the structure part of your strategy as long as you're dealing with what market structure shift. Now, when it's time to pick out your POIs, the zones that you mark out as a possible point of interest are as follows. So, for example, the first zone will be your breaker block levels. The two scenarios, the two POIs that we use are breaker blocks and order blocks. The two of them can be used to pick your entry, but the one to choose is the one that obeys all the rules of picking a proper point of interest. Now, how do you mark out the possible POIs before you even start looking at those rules? So if market gives you an MSS or a multiple breakout structure, that is the first thing to look out for. Ensure that you see the structure part of your strategy first of all. After that, and the candle that triggered that structure part of your strategy closes, you have to look, because this was an MSS to the upside, you have to look to the downside to find your possible points of interest. See this high that was taken out when price was creating the MSS, the body of this high would become a breaker block. The body of this other high would also become a breaker block as well. Then down here would now be the other block that triggered the move to happen. In this scenario here, after the MSS, to find your possible points of interest, because it was just one high that was taken out when price gave us the MSS, only this high would be your breaker block. Then down here would be the other block that triggered the move to happen. So what is shout power? So these are the two scenarios. These are the two possible points of interest that we'll make use of. The order block and the breaker block. So this is for the bearish scenario. The bullish scenario would be something like this: higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Then let's say you get an MSS. This is the first scenario. Let's say the second scenario is this: higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Then you get an MSS. Now, the difference between this first scenario and this second scenario is that in the first scenario, only one zone was taken out, only one low was taken out, and price closed. Remember, in MSS, you can have just one zone being taken out and it's fine. It's only in the multiple breakouts show that you need more than one zone to be taken out. So for this MSS, for this first zone, this is valid. In this second one, this is also valid. But how many zones got taken out? This low, and then price closed below two of them. The only difference in this and this is that this one will have few POIs. This one will have more possible POIs. So how do you mark out the possible points of interest? This low that was taken out, the body of the low would become a breaker block. Then up here that triggered the move to happen will be your order block. In this scenario, the body of this load that was taken out will become a breaker block. The body of this other load that was taken out will also become a breaker block. Then up here is the other block that triggered the move to happen. So you have how many points of interest? You have 1, 2, and 3. In this one, you have 1 and 2. Same here, you have 1 and 2. This one, you have 1, 2, and 3. This is how you mark out your possible points of interest when it comes to trading this strategy. So on the live chart, let's look at one of the scenarios. So first of all, we had the market structure shift. Now, some of the examples they gave you guys in the last class, you now see why in some examples we used the order block, and then in some example. So the examples that we use the order block, if you use the rules of picking a point of interest, you'll still find out why. So in this scenario, we had a clear downtrend, which is price giving us a series of lower highs and lower lows, lower high, then lower low, lower high, then lower low. Then price triggered the zone. We expect a reversal to come in, which is this order block zone. But because it's large, we require an extra layer of confirmation, which is with the reversal concept. When price came in here and took out the last high, we got a market structure shift. So now to find our possible points of interest, we have to first of all wait for the candle that triggered the MSS to close. Then because it was an MSS to the upside, we have to look to the downside to find possible points of interest. So if you look, the first zone you would see, this high that was taken out, the body of the high would become what? One of the POIs, which is your breaker block. Down here is another POI, which is your order block. And since the wick of the order block is smaller than the body, we're making our entry from the body, from the wick of the order block. Now below here, you can find another POI also, another order block down here. Since the wick of the other block is longer than the body, we're making our entry from the body of the other block. So now, in this scenario, most people would have kept their entries down here. And some people would say, okay, maybe this OB here would hold. And some people would have kept their entry at the breaker block here. Now, there's only one way to know precisely the POI that price is more likely to respect. And is the one that follows the rules of picking a proper point of interest. First of all, before you can look at those possible rules, you have to ensure that you've already gotten the structure part of your strategy. Remember, all the examples I was giving here, I was very, very emphasized on making sure you've either gotten a market structure shift or you've gotten a multiple breakout structure. That just tell you that the structure is very, very important. If you don't have the structure, it's very difficult to know whether you're looking for continuations or reversals. So it's very important to understand whether market is giving you a continuation entry or a reversal entry. And if you don't have that structure part of your strategy, it's difficult to pinpoint what a breaker block is, because a breaker block can only be gotten when price gives you the structure part of your strategy. So we got the structure part of our strategy here, which is the MSS. Now, our possible points of interest, the body of the zone that was broken while the MSS was being created is the breaker block. Then the other block has specific candles, which is this and this. So we have 1, 2, 3 possible points of interest, which all can be valid to be used as an entry. All of them can be valid to be used as an entry. So this, we have 3 possible points of interest here. In this scenario here, we got, so since this is an MSS the first time, so moving forward, if you're looking for more entries, you're focused on looking for continuations, meaning that we're looking for multiple breakout structure instead moving forward. If you're looking for more entries for a buy, you should just be focused on looking for continuation entries, which is for price to give you what? A multiple breakout structure. And then how do you get that multiple breakout structure? For price to take out more than one zone. So in this scenario here, market is already bullish. To find more buy entries, price needs to take out more than one zone, which is one internal zone, or it can be 2 internal zones, but an internal zone needs to be taken out and an external zone needs to be taken out as well. In the last class, I told you guys what an internal zone is, right? I told you guys what an internal zone is, right? I did, Abby? I did, right? I'm pretty sure I did. I said the internal zone is the current zone of the is this like the zone of the current trend. If you have an uptrend now, higher high and higher low, this is the internal zone now because it's the high of the current trend of the market. Market breaks this high, is an internal zone being broken. If price gives you a higher low, this high is the internal high. If price takes out this high, is the high of the current trend of the market. If it pulls back again, is also what? An internal zone versus the high of the current trend of the market. The external zone is the high that was existing before the current trend. So let's say price was bearish before, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. This is what? The external zone, because this high was made when price was on the opposite side of the trend. So this is the external high, this one is the internal high. If price should break these two zones, this is what you call a multiple breakout structure, because one internal zone got broken and the external zone got broken as well. Do you guys understand? Uh, so are you guys I did not explain this? Uh, okay, okay. But that's just what it is. Two zones, one internal zone, one internal. It can even be two internal zones, two external. It does not matter as long as an internal zone and an external zone got taken out. That is what makes a good multiple breakout structure. So, for example, the high of the current trend is this, and the external high, the one that was made when price was what selling back down, is what this. So to get a multiple breakout structure, price needs to take out these two zones. So another external high is also this one here. Another one is there. So if market should take out the high of a current trend and the high of a previous trend and closes above or below them, as long as it's more than one zone that was taken out, that's a multiple breakout structure. So you can look for continuations from that. So an example of that happening is when price took this high, the internal one, and then the external one, and closed above two of them. You don't even need to take out the other one as long as more than combined, more than two zones were taken out. Once the candle closes, you have encountered the multiple breakout structure. So when this zone, the internal one and the external one, got taken out, you have a multiple breakout structure. Now, if you guys noticed before, I was not making use of these internal and external zones. But the one thing is that you constantly keep practicing and reinventing yourself. Before, I would just say more than one zone being taken out of the market, and that's what I would use as my multiple breakout structure. It used to work. It still works. But the thing is that eventually there's sometimes that you can mark out two internal zones and call it a multiple breakout structure, and price will not respect it. For example, if you've already gotten an MSS, then price already buying. Then you get something like this, market do something like this and this, then this happens, and then you're waiting for price to come back to your breaker block, and then for you to take a buy, and they will not come back. Then you have to start wondering what's the difference between this thing that has happened now and then and this one. The difference is that this was a former a bearish move. This is the high of the bearish move. This is a bullish move. This is the high of the bullish move. Two zones get taken out. The difference here is because this one, the high that was made when market was already bullish. So it's just so you need internal and external zone combined to get a proper multi-breakout structure. So wow, see how you see the difference between people that want to constantly learn and people that don't. Because I was not making use of this. Even last month, I was not. I kept studying more and more and more, and actually found out that when this happens, internals and externals on go. See how you learn and keep bettering yourself when it comes to technicals. You guys are following me up, right? Nice. Power. So, so now, so when you get, if you're looking for continuations, it's very, very important to get the multiple breakout structure. Very important. So if an internal zone gets taken out and an external zone gets taken out as well, that's a multiple breakout structure. So when the candle closes and those two zones have been taken out, that's when you can mark the continuation part of the strategy. So when this is the continuation that we're looking for, when moment price closed above this zone and this zone, external, internal, can mark the multiple breakout structure It's now time to look out for the liquidity. Sorry. So when you mark out these zones, now you have to look out for your possible points of interest. Now, how do you mark out your possible POIs? Like I said, there are two POIs that will make use of what and what. Two POIs that will make use of what and what. Exactly, BB and OB. And then to mark out the breaker, what do you look out for? To mark out the breaker blocks, what do you look out for? No. To mark out the breaker blocks is the zones that price broke while creating the multiple breaker structure, or the zones that price broke while creating your market structure shift. So in this scenario, we got price. Hang on, let me go back to what I was saying. So in this scenario, we had price take out two zones, this high and this high. If it's the multiple breaker structure, to mark out the possible zones, let me give you guys an example with the diagram first. Let's say this is an external zone, then the internal zone will be this. So this high and this high got taken out. To find the possible points of interest, you have to wait for the candle that did that to close. Then to mark your possible points of interest, the body of those highs that was broken will become your breaker blocks. And then you just find your other block. So this high that was taken out by this multiple breaker structure. Remember, you don't look for PO, you don't look for breaker blocks when it's just a single breaker structure. You don't look for a breaker block when it's just a single breaker structure. You look for a breaker block when you have a multiple breaker structure or when you have an MSS. If you're dealing with continuations, you have to make sure it's two structures that was broken before you can start looking for your breaker block or your other block. If it's the MSS, once you get the MSS, you can just look for your breaker and your OB. So you ignore all these ones that was just single breaker structure. Then this one that took out more than one zone, you have to now mark your possible points of interest there. So when this high closes, when this candle closes, you have to look because it's the multiple breaker structure to the upside, you have to look downwards to find the possible points of interest. This high that was taken out, the body of this high would become a breaker block. This other high that was taken out, the internal one, the body of the internal high will also become a breaker block as well. Then down here is what the other block. So that's how you mark your possible points of interest, both when it comes to reversals and when it comes to continuation. So in this particular zone, these two zones that was taken out, the candle closed above two of them. So to find your possible points of interest, this high that was taken out, the external one, the body of the external high would become a breaker block. This internal high that was taken out, the body of the internal high will also become a breaker block. Then down here is the other block that triggered the move to happen. But the thing is that the other block and this breaker block are actually on the same line. They are enclosed inside the same zone. So I can just mark this as one point of interest. This breaker block, this other block is inside the same POI. So technically, it's three POIs, but also technically is two POIs. Because what makes it three? This is the first one, the breaker block. This is the first one. One. This is the second one, the breaker. Two. The third one, the other block here. Three. But they are enclosed in the same box. So I can just say one and two, but let's just leave it like this. So this is how you mark out the zone. So now, another one is this, more continuation entries. Because we're looking for continuations, we have to focus on what? An internal zone and external zone getting broken. So the external zones we have is this one. It's another external zone because this is the high that was made when price was what? Selling down. So this is what? Another external zone here. Then an internal zone is what? This one's. This can be an internal zone. There are multiple internal zones here. As long as more than one was taken out, then so this was going to be an internal zone. So if you pay attention, when price took out, in fact, the candle took out this one, and then this one, and also took out the external one as well. So you have a multiple breakout structure when that happens. So to mark out your possible points of interest, this external zone, the body of the external zone will become a breaker block, one of the POIs. This internal zone, the body of it will also become a breaker block as well. So you have one, in fact, you can categorically call this one POI because they are all in the same line. But I can just pick out the last internal zone I can see that was broken and just mark it out because it's the visible one there. So I can pick another two here. So I have one POI here, the external zone, and then the internal one that was broken here. Sorry, so this is the internal one here. So the external one, then the internal one here too. You understand? So that is how you mark your possible points of interest. Then down here is the other block. So 3. Now, paying attention to this, you will notice that if you are actually an order block kind of person, if you marked your order block here, price would not have triggered the OB when it bought from this zone. So there's a reason why. So that's what I keep saying. So to mark the right multiple break of structure, internal zone, external zone being taken out. If you pay attention, when price took out this high, it's just an internal zone because market was already bullish. Market was already buying when market took out when this zone was taken out. Now it's an internal zone, but there was no external zone that got taken out as well. So we can now mark a multiple record structure here because just one zone that was taken out. The price was already bullish when this high was made. So price took out this high, but there was no other high that was taken out from the opposite side. So I can now mark out a multiple record structure because just an internal zone that was taken out here. But in this scenario here, if you pay attention, you can see the high that was made when price was already bullish from this side, this high. That is the internal zone. Now the external zone, the high that was made when price was selling down. So this one is an external zone. Now in this scenario, we have more than one external zone as well. We have another external zone here because this candle took out more than one external zone. Even another external zone here as well. Another high that was made when price was selling down. This is this one here. And then price closed above all of them with a body candle. The moment that happens, so this is one internal, external. Now, if market stopped here and closed here, I can mark this as a multiple record structure, but it did not. The candle went up and even took out this other high here. So wherever the closure stops is where you can mark. You can start looking for possible POIs. So because market did not just close below this first one and this one, it kept going up. I can mark out more zones, and that external zone as well, and the external zone as well. You know where market closes with a body candle above these zones, that I can now mark out my possible points of interest. And when the candle closed up here, that's when I can mark up my possible points of interest. So the possible points of interest are the breaker blocks and then the other blocks. So the breaker block, first of all, the zone that price took out while creating the multiple breaker structure. So this external zone, the body of the external zone will become a breaker block 1. The body of this external zone will become another breaker block 2. The body of this external zone will become another breaker block 3. The body of this external zone will become another breaker block 4. Then down here, the other block zone. So in this scenario, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible points of interest. And any of these POIs can be used as an entry, any of them. But you have to narrow it down to just one. Hope you guys are following. Somebody shout power. Somebody shout power. Someone is asking me what's the difference between the external and internal zone. Ah, 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 ah. Someone said the way I'm marking them is confusing. How? How is it confusing? How? This is one of the simplest ways to actually teach this. The simplest way. If it's confusing, you can always go back and rewatch it. And then someone said, must the two zones be broken by one candle? No, it must not. If one candle breaks one zone and then the other zone have not been broken and another candle now comes up to break the other one, that's when you can mark out the multi-break construction. It must not be one candle, but majority of the time, one candle does that. So now someone's asking, how do you know which of them is valid? Exactly. So that's where we're going. That's where I'm getting to. Yes, and that's where I'm getting to. So just like relax a bit. So now that you have all these possible POIs, you can only choose one. Another example is here. We have an MSS that price gave us. When price took out, see the former downtrend, all of a sudden it took out the last high. The candle took out another high as well and closed, giving us an MSS. To find possible points of interest, the body of the highs that was broken during this MSS creation, the body of the high would become a breaker block. This is one breaker, this other high, another breaker, then down here is your other block. So in this scenario, we have 1, 2, 3 possible points of interest. So the breaker, or B. So you can only choose one, like I said, and there's how to know the particular one to choose out of all these examples. So we have the rules we pay attention to when it comes to picking a proper point of interest. So let's dive on and let's talk about those rules together. So the rules we pay attention to when it comes to picking a proper POI. First one, like I've been shouting since, I've been shouting it since, and now I'm including it in the rule as well. So you will not say, oh, you did not tell me this. I told you. If you do rubbish, you call me your mentor outside, I will deny you. Pay attention. Pay close attention to this. So first of all, we said ensure there is a market structure shift or a double, let me change this to multiple, or a multiple breakout structure. Because it can be triple, it can be double as well. So the first rule says ensure there is a market structure shift or a multiple breakout structure. Like I said, when we first started this class, I said, before you can start picking possible points of interest, you have to ensure you've gotten a multiple breakout structure or a market structure shift. That is the first rule here. That is what I've been shouting since, and I still made it the first rule as well. So all the examples I gave you guys, I made sure I marked out either a market structure shift or a multiple breakout structure. That is the first rule. After that, after the MSS or the multiple breakout structure, you now have to scan for your possible points of interest. So the zones that was broken when market was creating the MSS or when market was creating the multiple breakout structure, those zones, the body of those zones become breaker blocks. Then the other block is what already the bearish candle and the bullish candle that engulfs, or the bullish candle and the bearish candle that engulfs, depending on the direction you're looking to trade at. So after that, the second rule says ensure there is an inducement / liquidity. Ensure there is what? An inducement / liquidity. The inducement, the first valid pullback after a market structure shift, or the first valid pullback after a multiple breakout structure. Now, what makes the pullback valid? What makes it valid is that if the pullback has been created, if the retracement has been done, market needs to proceed to take out the body closure of your MSS candle or the body closure of your multiple breakout structure candle. I talked about this in the first class, Abi. Did I or did I not? Okay. So now, that is the second rule. It says you should ensure there is an inducement. So let's check the examples that I gave out here. First one, we have the MSS, the possible POIs, the zones that was broken. This zone that was broken becomes a breaker block, one POI. Down here, another block, down here, another block. The first true has been gotten when we got the MSS. We marked out our possible points of interest. Good. The second rule, ensure that we have an inducement. The body closure of the MSS candle is right here. The inducement is a retracement that proceeds to take out the body closure of that MSS candle here. After this, you've gotten the second rule because you've gotten your inducement. This is for the MSS one. And for the multiple breaker structure one, when price gave us the multiple breaker structure and closed above here, we got the internal zone and the external zone being broken. In fact, you can take out the internal zone and the external zone from your mind if it's too confusing. Just make sure that price takes up more than one zone while maintaining the current trend of the market. If market is bullish while giving you higher highs and higher lows, if it gives you a higher high, to mark a multiple breaker structure, you need to take out more than one high. That's just it. The external zone and internal zone are for people that are very smart. So if you know you are smart, this will not be difficult for you. But if you they carry last for class when you're in secondary school, you can down it down to just more than one zone being broken. Somebody shout power. Mhm. So exactly. So nobody wants to say they carry last for class now. All of a sudden, all of them understand. When the first time you said the internal zone and the external zone was confusing, all of a sudden now everybody understand it. Which person said it was difficult? Talk to you, they carry last for class, Ivy. No problem. Let's continue. All of ah God. So let's continue. Now the second rule, right? The inducement. So remember the inducement, you should only start looking for inducement after the MSS or after the multiple breakout structure. So now this is the multiple breakout structure, right? After that, it's time to look out for your inducement. Hmm? So I want to mark two zones. Do you understand? And I'll ask you a question. Between this, or this. So I'll label them. 1, 2, 3. Which one is your inducement between 1, 2, and 3? Which one is your inducement here? 1, 2, and 3. Which one is your inducement here? Uh-huh. The person that answered first is Zeke. Zeke, send me your account number in my DM ASAP. Send me your account number in my DM ASAP. We'll continue. Mhm. Ja, it's just, I don't know, let me look. I've not seen, I've not seen your account number. Oh, no worry, maybe it's network. Once it loads, no problem. So let's continue. So yeah, the first one, I didn't see the account number, Shan. So okay, I've seen it, I've seen it, I've seen it, I've seen it. Good, I've seen it. Hang on. Before we continue. Mhm. My headset has okay. My headset is low. I know once they hear noise from the outside world. Okay, so Zeki, your name is Benson Cynthia. Why the answer woman name now? Wow, why the answer woman name? All right. Um. Okay, I've sent it. So let's continue. Ahead. Now let's go back to what I was saying. So now the like I said, after the first rule, which says you should ensure there is a market structure shift or a multiple breakout structure, you have to when they give you that and the candle closes, you have to mark out possible POIs. So mark out your possible points of interest. Then the second rule, you should look for your inducement. The inducement is the first valid pullback after an MSN. What makes a pullback valid is that when market gives you a retracement, it should proceed to take out the body closure of the MSS candle. So your proper inducement is this. Because after market gave us this pullback, it took out the body. This is the body closure of this multiple break of candle. Because if markets came down here and this pullback actually triggered your POI, it would have taken a buy here. It was only because price came down, he tried to trigger the buy, but he could not. So this is the valid inducement because after this was made, any any retracement that touches the POI, you can use that as your entry. So this is our inducement right here. Mhm. So this is the inducement. This is the inducement here. If you like, no specific, they prepare to answer the next question. Wait till I go share money. Eh, okay. So this is the external zone, like more than one zone being taken out. This high, this high, this high, this high, more than one being taken out, and an external one was included. When price closed, this is the closure of the multiple breakout structure here. Now, which one is our inducement? The first or the second? Yeah, exactly. First. So the first is is the the inducement, all right? So that means we're going to follow our second rule and mark our inducement from here. So let me remove this extra thing that's not needed. So this is our inducement there. In this one, after the multiple breakout structure, this zone and then all the multiple highs that was taken out, you have to look for your what? For your possible points of interest, which we already marked out, which is the zone that was broken, the body of those zones become breakers, then the other block level. So you have one, two, three, four, five possible points of interest. Now, after that, to mark out your the next rule, which is what your inducement is a pullback that takes out the body closure or your MSS candle. So the body fuck. Okay, okay. Can you guys hear me? Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Okay. Okay. All right. So now, now, the zones that was taken out. So now the inducement would be the pullback. Like I said, it can be a candle wick as well, as long as the body closure of the multiple closure candle gets taken out. This is the pullback. This is the inducement here. So we have our inducement as well. Okay, so that is the inducement there. So now it's time for the third rule. Now the third rule says the point of interest needs to be unmitigated. First of all, mitigation, let me define mitigation for you guys. Mitigation basically means price in terms of trading, in terms of TA. Mitigation means price coming to tap into your point of interest. But one crucial thing is that before a before a zone, before a point of interest can be properly mitigated, price needs to tap into it after there has been an MSS or after there has been a multiple break of structure. If you've not gotten an MSS or a multiple break of structure, even if price tapped into your POI or maybe a week touched your POI before price pushed up, that POI is still valid as long as price did not do that after an MSS or after a multiple break of structure. There are other blocks that price already touched before price pushed up, but the other blocks still held. For example, this other block here, before price pushed up, it already wicked into this other block before pushing up to take out this high. But after it took out the high, price still came back and used the OB to buy. Why? Because the first time that price touched into the OB, there has not been an MSS or multi break or structure yet. So mitigation means price coming to tap into your point of interest after an MSS or after a multiple break of structure. Now, the third rule is telling you that during the process of market coming to create your inducement, because before an inducement can be created, the market already needs to have created an MSS or a multiple break of structure. During that process of market creating the inducement, you have to ensure that whichever point of interest you had mapped out, the inducement candle did not touch the body of that POI. For example, this is a multiple break of structure right here. This is a multiple break of structure right here. Your possible points of interest are this high, the body of this high as well, and then this OB down here. Now, market is saying in the third rule, any point of interest that you have marked out, if more market coming to create your inducement, it touches any point of interest. Let's say it touched the body of this breaker block. Automatically, this breaker block is getting disqualified. So it's telling you that any POI that market touches while coming to create your inducement, that POI can no longer be applied in your POIs, in your valid POIs there. So it's therefore disqualified. The ones that is going to be left is the ones that price did not touch or did not mitigate while creating your inducement. So in this scenario here, if you check, we have the MSS, we have the inducement, the possible points of interest, this breaker, this other block, and then this other block down here. But if you check, our inducement is right here, meaning that when market was creating the inducement, it actually touched this breaker block and actually went into it. Like it went below itself, meaning that this point of interest, this breaker block here, has been what? Disqualified. X. So you can no longer use this breaker block as an entry, meaning that it's only two that is left, this other block and this other block down here. Same way, in this scenario here, when price gave us the multiple breaker structure, we have this breaker block and then this zone as our entry, this breaker and this other block down as our entry. But if you check, when market was creating your inducement, this is the inducement here. The inducement is here. It touched the body of this breaker block. Therefore, what does that mean? Disqualified. And anyone I mark with an X, just know it's been disqualified, leaving just this one and then this one down here. In this scenario, this is the external zone and internal zone, right? When price was creating your inducement, if you check, remember, for it to mitigate, it needs to be the body of that zone that will be taken out. The body of that zone that will be mitigated, not the wick. So the market created this inducement. It touched the wick of this breaker, but did not touch the body. Meaning that this breaker, this external one, price did not touch it. This internal one, price did not also touch it. Two of them are still valid to be used as an entry. None of them has been disqualified yet. None of them. So after that, this next one, we have the external, all these ones taken out. We have the inducement. And if you check, the inducement candle did not touch the body of any of these our POIs, meaning that all these our POIs, they are all still valid to be used as an entry. Now, lastly, it's now time to use, so you have all this valid. So now, it's now time to, now some of them, after disqualifying the unmitigated ones, after disqualifying the mitigated ones, you are only is only stuck with just some will just be left with one, some can still be left with two. The ones that is just left with one is so easy to pick the one to choose. But there are still some that can be left with two POIs or three POIs. So that's why there are four rules. So the fourth rule now says pick the point of interest closest to your inducement. Pick the point of interest closest to your inducement. So we're looking for buys here. We already have this breaker block disqualified, leaving just this other block and this other block. Confused on the one to pick. Where's our inducement here? Choose your inducement down. The first POI you meet is the one you're going to choose as your entry. This is the other block that's going to be our entry. That's what we bought from here. This one, we already have the inducement that mitigated this breaker block. So this is already disqualified, leaving just this and this. This this is on the same line. So I can just call this one POI because two of them are on the same line. So if you trace your inducement down, the first POI you would meet right here. That's why our entry came from there. This one, our inducement is right here. These two POIs are still valid to be used as an entry because none of them got mitigated by the inducement candle. So they have to follow the last rule and say the one that is closest to your inducement. So if you trace it down, you would meet the breaker here first. Or this breaker here as well. Anyone? No, you meet this one first. Sorry, not this one at the back. You meet the other one first. Yeah. Now, when picking breaker blocks, yeah, the ways you can pick your stop loss for the breaker blocks, most times I try to cover the entire candles that makes up the breaker block. When the candle is too long, I will just cover the breaker block and then put my stop loss close to the next POI that I know that price is not going to get to. For example, my breaker, like let's say it's closed. This is the breaker, this is the other block. Knowing that if I had picked the other block, I would have been wrong. So I will pick my entry from the breaker block and keep my stop loss close to the other block side, where like the next point of interest that is invalid would be my stop loss. But most times I cover the entire candles of the breaker block. So you see the first trade, 1, 2, 3. Trading the same concepts. One is to 7, one is to 11, one is to 9. Using the rules of picking a point of interest to pick first 3 trades consecutively, right? The next one, our inducement candle is what? Right here. To know the PI to pick out of this, you have to trace down, and the first one that meets the after the inducement is your PI. So if you're tracing down, the first PI you meet is the body of this breaker block here, which is going to be your point of interest. So I can keep my stop loss next to the what? The next PI, which is this other breaker that another person is not going to get to. So now notice how we have the first 1, 2, 3, 4, back to back to back to back. Reversal first, the rest continuations, using what? The rules of picking a point of interest to pick our entries. So you see why sometimes markets react from your other block, sometimes the market reacts from your breaker blocks. So in this particular trade, this recent buy on BTC that I took as well, um, which is here. This is the buy on BTC here. So market gave us the MSS, the candle closes. The body of the candles that price took out, placing the MSS is the breaker, which is this high, and this down here is the other block. Next thing is look out for your inducement, which is this candle pullback that takes out the body closure of this MSS candle, which is down here. And the third rule, ensure that the point of interest is still unmitigated. But when my market was creating the inducement, it touched the body of this breaker and then the body of this breaker as well, meaning that two of them has been disqualified, leaving just this one. So if you can only just pick that one or still use the final rule, pick the point of interest closest to your inducement. Inducement being right here, the other block is the next POI that is closest to the inducement. That is where our entry came from. I'm going to cover this and then target the high. So do you guys now understand how we trade this? Yeah, everything was traded in one time frame. I did not switch any time frames at all. So, so this is how you pick your POI. This is how you pick your POIs. I can use another pair, but should I use gold? If I use gold this period, let me check. Now, okay. This is on gold here. Actually, this is the recent trade on gold. So we have when price gave us the multiple breakout structure, taking out this external zone. We have the inducement. Then we have the body of this high that was broken, one breaker, another breaker, then down here is the other block. So the second rule, have an inducement, possible points of interest marked out. Third rule, ensure the point of interest is unmitigated. The inducement did not mitigate the body of any of these POIs. Last rule, be the one that is closest to your inducement, this breaker block here. This is the buy on gold that happened today. It's the same thing, like over and 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 over. So the gold is still the 1 hour time frame. I'm a day trader. I trade the 1 hour time frame mostly. I mostly focus on the 1 hour time frame. And if market is too volatile, I can go lower. Time frame does not matter. Time frame does not matter. It does not matter the time frame you are on. Why do I like using UT6? I don't know what UT-6 is. I don't know. And what's UT-6? Is it time zones? I don't know. I don't know. That's what my distance is. That's what my chart is set to. Do you understand? So like, yeah. So so that's it, guys. That is it, guys. So I was supposed to do a question session here, but unfortunately, I have another class. So I will give you guys one free session. After we know we're supposed to be four. I'll make it five. The fifth one will just be for questions. So we'll just do once we're done with classes and everything. Once you watch all the recordings of all those classes that we have, we'll have a question session for all those for this. Yeah, for it. So someone said I should talk about patience. Yeah, no get patient here too. The only patience I have is to wait for my entry to trigger and to wait for TP. Um, I don't know which other patience you want me to. What of stacking? Don't stack, please. Do not stack. Do not stack. Yeah. So I actually have a private class with someone because with the class was shifted from Sunday to today because I was sick yesterday. So the class is recorded. Obviously, I'm gonna send the recording. Yeah, I mark out my entries on the same time frame I analyze and the same time frame I mark out my entries. It's really not difficult actually. The same time frame I mark out my is why it's the same time frame I do everything. So yeah, so guys, this is the second session. Should I open the group chat for you guys now? Or wait till the classes are done to open the group chat because most people would. All right, sir. Let me just open the group chat later. I will lock it tomorrow. All right, guys, that's it for this session, and we'll have another class on Sunday. Thank you, guys.